Good evening, race fans, and welcome into, I guess, call it episode number 3 of the iRacing Slice of Life broadcast. Tonight, we are here rounding out, I believe, what's going to be the last of our Week 13 shenanigans for 2022 Season 4, with a little bit of GT3 fixed at the Daytona International Speedway. And I'll tell you what, race fans, name a more iconic duo for American road course racing than GT3s at Daytona. After all, in just a little over a month, call it maybe a month and a half, we will be having the 24 hours of Daytona. And of course, everyone really looking forward to that, both in the real world and on the iRacing.com platform. So why not get a little bit of GT3 practice in before the big show? Only going to be 15 minutes on the clock this evening for this race, so it's bound to be a bit of a chaotic one, bit of a hectic one, but this one should definitely be pretty interesting. The strength of field tonight, a little bit under 4,000, which is far more than anything I hope to achieve anytime soon, so that's a good reference point, is way above my skill level. That said, let's take things down trackside and get a look at our starting lineup here tonight. Starting out on the pole here this evening, going to be driving the number 17 machine, and that is Tiago Diaz. Over in P number 2, driving the number 5 machine out of Canada, it's going to be Alex Ellis. Third place going to another Canadian driver, this one driving the number 15, that's going to be Maxim Tilineuve. Fourth place going to go back to the driver of the number 6 machine for Nikhil Kopar. Fifth place going to go back to Thomas Fisher out of the United States in the number 14, followed by Andre De Silva in the number 8 back in 6. Seventh place going to go to the 18 of Philip Lee, with Austin Cobb in the 20 to his outside in the number 20 machine. Ninth place going to go back to the 7 of Matthias Kaiser, with Juan Lazart in the 107, rounding out the top 10 here tonight. 11th going to go back to B.D. Rossi in the number 9 machine, followed by Kikyu Moya in the number 10 in P number 12. Back in row number 7, going to be the 16 of Paulo Lagner and Cody Deeth in the 69 in the 14th position. 15th going to go back to Damon Woods in the 56, with Elvis Rankin in the 01 to his outside. 17th going to go back to John Peisnick in the 13, with Garrett Maines in the number 1, rounding out row number 9. Row number 10 going to go to Zach Bodrick in the 2, and the number 3 of Eddie Beswick. 21st going to go back to Alexander Sharon, and P22 going to go back to the 11 of Marius Blendia. 23rd going to go to Luis Henriquez. 24th going to go to Washington Carvalho. 25th going to go back to Vicente Galicia in the 21. 26th to Sundar Don Sekron in the 22. 27th going to go to Andy Korsra. And 28th going to go to Daniel Williams, rounding out this 28-car field here tonight. This should definitely be quite the fun one. Going to only be 15 minutes on the clock for these drivers, so not a very long race, but a very, very high skill average amongst these drivers. This is the top split race of the evening. 28 cars on the field. Going to come out to be roughly about, call it maybe 10 laps, around 9 or 10. But the pace car is off. Let's get this thing rolling. Green flag is up in the air and we are rolling. Everyone off to a decent start heading down into turn number 1. Whether they continue to cooperate through the corner is going to remain to be seen, and already trouble back in the back. That's a couple of cars around already. Andy Corsa, Austin Cobb, Eddie Beswick as well, another driver around already. little bit of trouble in that first turn, but when you have 28 cars on the track all heading down there at one time, not entirely surprising to see that there was a little bit of difficulty amongst the field, but still, drivers managing to, for the most part, behave themselves around the track. And look at that, up in P number 2, the 15 of Maxime Villeneuve driving a McLaren. Probably one of the most underutilized cars out of the GT3 field here on the iRacing.com platform. Of course, it's unfair for me to say that, as there actually is a McLaren in the field, whereas there is not a Ford GT3 in the field. I'd say the Ford GT3 definitely lower on the popularity list than the McLaren, but still always cool to see what I would think is an underappreciated car out on the track here tonight. Heading down into the bus stop, everyone for the most part behaving pretty well. A couple of off tracks here and there, a little bit of contact there between Luis Henriquez and I believe the 97 of Alexander Chiron. That Mercedes AMG getting knocked all the way back to 24th just like that in a matter of seconds as the whole field sails past them. But front of the pack completing their first lap and heading down into turn number 1 yet again, arguably the most dangerous turn on the track, going from the very high speed full throttle pedal to the metal actual NASCAR part of the track into a pretty tight and sweeping corner. Always scary to see, always dangerous to go down there side by side, but it looks like just about everyone pulled it off without too much trouble. Of course, this is the top split race. 4,000 strength of field is absolutely no laughing matter. So just because this is week 13 does not mean that these drivers are not going to be putting on some very exciting racing here tonight. A little bit further back, you can see the battle here for the 10th position between Matthias Kaiser and Elvis Rankin. The Ferrari and Lamborghini respectively. Kaiser managing to get the pass, but still a long race ahead of him in that Red Bull livery. Going to have to be holding the inside, coming down into the bus stop. Not necessarily a place you want to be going into 2x2. Is it going to work out for him? No, it is not. That 13 machine is going to go spinning off his nose. That's not a 13, that's a 107. That's Juan Lazart getting sent to the Shadow Realm, dare I say, all the way down to the 21st position just from that little bit of a love tap. That's definitely got a sting. 11 positions kicked out from under him just like that in that BMW. Maxime Villeneuve got his way up into the lead, and we're going 3, make that 4 wide into turn number 1 as there was a car entering pit lane. I'm sure that several of the drivers at the front of this field are going to be needing a new pair of pants after that one. And that's a driver around, that's Diego Diaz. That Audi getting spun around heading into turn number 2, and gotta hold the brakes and let the whole field by. That's another one that's got a sting. That costed him 19 positions, just like that. But who knows, maybe the driver of that number 17 Audi is ready to do the last to first challenge. Maybe he just has it under his belt. After all, he does have a 3.2k iRating. That is a pretty solid number under his belt, not the highest driver in the field. The highest driver being Cody Diaz, that somehow has a 9.9 iRating. I'm not sure if that is a graphical error on our screen or if a driver legitimately has a 9.9k iRating. I didn't know that was actually possible to achieve. But hey, you never know. It is pretty interesting to see that despite everyone talking about the Porsche being the meta car, at least for the 2022 Season 4 build, the front row does not have, well, the front of the field does not have any Porsches in it until all the way back in the 7th position. Now make that the 8th position with Philip Lee driving in that blue and white number 18 Porsche. Oh, and that's another driver around. That looks like Nikhil Kopkar in the number 6 Ferrari. A very eye-catching paint scheme. I gotta say, I am a fan of that car's colors, but definitely stings to see another driver that was having a really good battle for the lead of this race getting sent all the way back outside of the top 15. But speaking of cars in the top 15, it's just like what I was saying. Now Philip Lee up in the 6th position. For all of the talk and all of the hype of the Porsche being the meta GT3, there's not a single Porsche in the entire top 5. Maxime Villeneuve leading the race in the McLaren, followed by 3 Lamborghinis and a BMW. The Lamborghini, another car that really has not been on people's radar this season, and I think that's what goes to show that there's more to racing than just raw numbers. And if you can make the car that best suits your driving style and best fits what you want to drive work for you, then you really shouldn't be following YouTube guides on what the meta car is in a raw stat comparison, because Maxime Villeneuve making that McLaren work for him, even though the McLaren was widely considered to be one of the worst of the GT3s statistically this season. And speaking of the lead, side by side down the front stretch, bumping with each other across the line, sailing it down side by side into turn number 1. Villeneuve getting a little bit loose, making a little bit of contact with Cody Dieth. Alex Ellis inserting himself into this battle as well. 1 McLaren, 2 Lamborghinis, heading down into turn number 2, and that's a Cody Dieth around. The driver that somehow has 9.9k iRating having a little bit of an incident, and he's going to be losing a good couple of positions from that little bit of a kerfuffle. Still in the top 5, which is definitely remarkable to see. He did an amazing job keeping that car from spinning around further, but still definitely a frustrating moment for the driver of that number 69 Lamborghini entry. Currently the closest battle on the Speedway, believe it or not, out of 27 cars, make that actually 28 cars, is the battle for the lead. Side by side down the bus stop, heading down into the bus stop. And it looks like Ellis is going to have the advantage, and Villeneuve's going to lose it. And a hard impact into the tire barrier. That's going to be the end of the race for that McLaren driver. That's what I get for bragging so much about a McLaren being in the lead of a top split GT3 race. That is, without a doubt, going to be the end of the race for Villeneuve. You can see him, he's taken the toe down to pit lane and actively falling down positions. Now that is the end of the race. There is no way he's going to be able to get that repaired and get back out there. So now Alex Ellis is going to be scored as the current leader of this race, as we have a little bit over 6 minutes left to go. The top 3 of the top 5 cars, all currently Lamborghinis. Andre De Silva, another driver that we have not talked about much this race, on a pretty steady improvement streak. He's another driver driving for the Lamborghini entry, and now make that 5 of the 4 top 5 cars right now are Lamborghinis, with the one lone BMW stuck in a little bit of a sandwich. Thomas Fischer trying to catch up to Cody Dieth, and maybe hoping a little bit that I believe that is a Ferrari just in front of them, a little bit of lap traffic will be able to help get some positions back, but it looks like maybe not going to be too much luck for him as they head down into the backstretch. A little bit further back, a battle brewing between Paisnik and Beswick. The other McLaren driver out there, his one and only battle buddy, eliminated from this race. It's now all for him, down to him, to represent that manufacturer here in this 15-minute sprint race at this Daytona. doing a little bit of bump drafting, which is not something that is generally advisable to be doing in a GT3 car, especially with one as angular of a nose as the McLaren. But it seems to be working out for him for the most part as he tries to set up an overtake on that number 01 Ferrari heading down into turn number 1. Not going to do it though, going to be very heavy on the brakes, really not wanting to run over that driver. And side by side into turn number 2, going to be making it nearly 3 wide. Fisher losing a spot to Andre De Silva. That's going to be another Lamborghini getting up into the top of this race. If Fisher falls back anymore, we could see this end up being an entire Lamborghini top 5, depending on how the cards fall. Everyone's still pushing with all they've got, though. 4 minutes left in this race. Call it 2, maybe 3 laps, depending on how the cards play out. And that was a driver around Vicente Galicia, losing it in that number 21 Lamborghini. Ended up in the grass out in turn number 4. He's got it going again, but falling down a couple of positions. The front of this race is the place to be, though. Several cars still under the blanket. Andre De Silva, Thomas Fisher, Zach Boderick, and Philip Lee all battling it out for positions on the podium or the top 5. And Ellis starting to build up a little bit of a gap, but as we head into the NASCAR oval section of the track where the draft plays a huge factor and a little bit of bumping, Thomas Fisher having a little bit of a love tap from behind from Zach Broderick. Zach really trying to do everything in his power to set up an overtake here, but he might be trying, dare I say, a little bit too hard in that Lamborghini. But it looks like everyone's going to safely navigate turn 1, which is honestly a shock to see. If this were any lower of a split, I would expect to see some sort of wreck there. And sure enough, John Peisnick sending it down low and taking that pass really well into turn number 2, getting around Philip Lee. John Peisnick up 10 positions so far, as well as Elvis Ranikin. Ranikin now up 11 as he gets around that number 14 BMW of Thomas Fisher. This technical area of the track, generally one of the best places to make overtakes. It looks like it is working out fairly well for all of these drivers, and actually Elvis Rankin driving an SDK Gaming entry. And little fun fact and a little bit of a plug here, SDK Gaming is the program that I use in order to get all of the information that you see on your screen right there. So little bit of a meta thing going on here. There's an SDK Gaming driver in this race and someone using SDK Gaming to do the broadcast. And sure enough, I say that, he's going to end up having to cut the bus stop, getting loose on entry. That's going to be a slowdown penalty for Elvis Rankin. You can see him deploying the parachute just a little bit, letting some of these cars come past him so that he can serve that penalty and get back into it as soon as possible. Really unfortunate for the driver of that 01 machine. Definitely not what he was wanting to happen this late into the race, especially with only 1 minute left to go. Looks like the white flag going to be going up into the air. This is the final lap of the race, and there is a huge battle for the lead. Ellis actually building up a little bit of a gap now. It looks like he managed to use a couple of those lap cars as a bit of a pick. That's the, looks like 86 of, I want to say, Andy Corsa he just got around. So he's building up a little bit of a gap between himself and Cody Dief, the driver that somehow has a 9.9 thousand iRating. Really don't know how that's possible, but I'm not going to ask questions about it. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the awesome racing that these GT3 drivers are putting on here tonight. Heading back out onto the NASCAR oval, Dieth has almost 0.3 of a second to make up. He has his work cut out for him. If everything goes all right for Ellis heading down into the bus stop, he will be good to go, but he is getting bumped draft by lap traffic. If I were Ellis, I would be very afraid right now, especially considering that Mercedes was looking like it was trying to make an overtake on him. That Mercedes going to back off and let him sail it on home, though. Looks like everyone else, for the most part, navigating the bus stop fairly well. It sounds like one driver might potentially have damage on the bottom of their race car. But everyone's still going full throttle and heading down the backstretch, front stretch, call it, and coming across the line. Alex Ellis going to be winning this race here in GT3 Fixed and immediately sending it as hard as possible into the inside wall and putting that number 5 machine upside down on its lid in celebration. A couple other cars all coming crashing down as well. Everyone doing a little bit of a victory celebration in their own little ways. And that's going to be the end of that. Everyone pulling their cars on down to pit lane, retiring for the evening, and getting ready to head out to the next event. I'll tell you what, race fans, for just a little 15-minute sprint race, that was an incredibly action-packed event and really great to see out here tonight. But before we send it off for our third entry in the iRacing Slice of Life broadcast, let's take a quick look at our race results and give a big congratulations to all of the drivers that put on such an awesome event here tonight. Top split of the 9:15 p.m. broadcast, or actually, yeah, the 9:15 split for GT3 Fixed Eastern Standard Time. So shout out to all those drivers. Taking home the win, gonna be the driver out of Canada. That's gonna be the 5 of Alex Ellis. That said, just behind him, Cody Dieth in the 69, the driver that somehow has the highest I rating I've ever seen, and probably the highest I rating you're actually capable of achieving. That's going to be Cody Dieth taking it home in P number 2. Back in the third position, going to be Andre De Silva in the number 8, with Zach Broderick in the number 2, coming back in P number 4. Fifth place can go to John Peisnick in the number 13, with Elvis Ranikin in the 01 coming home in P number 6. Seventh going to go back to Thomas Fischer in the 14, followed by Philip Lee in the 18, back in the 8th place. Ninth going to go to Vincente Galicia in the 21, with Austin Cobb in the 20 rounding out the top 10 here tonight. 11th going to go to Tygo Diaz in the 17, followed by Alexander Sharon in the number 97 in P number 12. 13th going to go back to Paulo Lagner in the 16, with Damon Woods in the 56 back in 14th, and Eddie Beswick in the 3 rounding out the top 15. 16th going back to Matthias Kaiser, followed by Maxim Tillanuv in the 15, the pole sitter of this race, ending up 5 laps down after a very unfortunate incident in the bus stop. Maxim going to be rolling it home in P number 17. Back in the 18th position, going to be Marcus Blenda in the 11, followed by Sundar Hanasekaran in the 22 in 19th, and Nikhil Kopkar in the 6, rounding out the top 20. 21st going to go to BD Rossi in the number 9, followed by Washington Carvalho in the 19 in the 22nd position. 23rd going to go back to Luis Enriquez in the 12, with Jan Lazart in the 107 in the 24th spot. 25th going to go to that 10 machine of Kike Moria, followed by Garrett Maines in the 1 and 26. Finally, rounding out this 28 car field tonight, Andy Corsa in the 86, going to be finishing back in P27, and Daniel Williams in the 4, going to be taking it home in the last spot of this 15-minute sprint race here for GT3 Fixed Week 13. And I'll tell you what, if Week 13 is putting on races like this, imagine what the official Season 1 of 2023 is going to be putting on. But for now, that's all we've got for y'all here tonight. Thanks for tuning in to the iRacing Slice of Life broadcast, and I will see you all next time. Have a good evening, race fans.